And the reading for today is on concept 3, and this is the Al-Anon concept 3, and this is from How Al-Anon Works. The right of decision makes effective leadership possible. Responsibility and authority go hand in hand. Realistically, there cannot be one without the other. If we delegate a task to someone, we also need to give them the authority to do their best without our constant interference. This requires trust that the other person is fully capable. When we give others the freedom to exercise judgment without criticism, we help them develop dignity, confidence, and trust in themselves. We need to be as clear as possible when we delegate a task to someone, especially if we have specific expectations. If we send someone to the store for bread and have in mind that we want whole wheat bread, it is important for us to communicate this. If we are not specific, we have no right to criticize if we receive pumpernickel instead. A combination of trust and freedom is at the heart of concept 3. Before Al-Anon's leaders prepare to deal with important issues at district meetings, area assemblies, and the World Service Conference, our groups often conduct group conscience meetings to provide input. The group representative, in turn, shares the results of these group discussions with the other group representatives and the district representative for possible presentation at the next area assembly. The groups trust their leaders and share their points of view with them. They also give their leaders the freedom to consider new information and to exercise their best judgment when the time comes to vote. Trust is what empowers our leaders to do their work. It not only builds confidence at all levels of service, but it also inspires our leaders to trust their role as a privilege, not as permission to wield power just for the sake of power. If leaders knowingly abuse the trust that their groups give them, the group conscience that advises and supports them can also remove them. Our leaders are always accountable to those they serve, but as long as our world services function reasonably well, our leaders deserve the trust that will continue to help them do a good job. And I'm going to put that in the chat now. So concept 3, the way I understand it, is about this combination of responsibility and authority. And if you've got two parameters, responsibility and authority, you've got 4 combinations of how they fit together. Combination 1, no responsibility, no authority. Combination 2, responsibility but no authority. The third one, authority without responsibility. And the fourth one, authority and responsibility going together. My baseline position when I got into recovery was no responsibility, no authority. I didn't lift a finger, certainly not for anyone else. On my own account, I occasionally lifted a finger, but only usually out of vanity or fear. I certainly didn't take responsibility for anything. And everything was everyone else's fault. That's what's so marvelous about not taking responsibility and not exercising authority. You can blame anyone for anything. Of course, this doesn't, fine words butter no parsnips, and this doesn't achieve very much over time. So gradually I learned there might be something better than that. So responsibility and authority, which means I find a job to do and I get on with it. One of my other Al-Anon traits is authority without responsibility, which is where I put myself in charge of other people's lives, but they're the ones that have to carry the can for it. So issuing minute orders, but not having, it's just words, but I'm putting myself in charge. Going on to the actual solution of responsibility plus authority in recovery. I've seen how groups operate and how they practice concept 3, or actually more often than not don't practice concept 3. And almost always when there's a problem in a group, there's either responsibility without authority or there's authority without responsibility. And I explain what each one looks like. I think traditional meetings I used to go to when I was new, and indeed lots of groups I've been to over the years, Officers are elected, but they're not allowed to do a thing without referring everything to the group conscience. So if you want to check, I had a situation many years ago where I arbitrarily changed a line in the script not arbitrarily, it's for good reason, but I changed a line in the script to try and reduce disruption during the meeting. And there was the most almighty furore in the group because that group's conscience was, we don't grant any authority to officers. They have none at all. So if you're the secretary of the meeting and your job is to read the script for the meeting, you have no authority other than to read the words on the page. And if you think or act outside of that, now groups are allowed to do that. And my mistake was not recognizing that the group's conscience was not to delegate anything, any real right of decision to its officers. Every detail had to be referred back to the group. And you're, of course, you're allowed to do that. And I failed to recognize that it was the group's prerogative to do that. So they were quite right to reprimand me for making that change. But the trouble is, the reason this doesn't work very well, it means you can't respond in the moment. So in that group, when there was a disruption, if the secretary tried to intervene or tamp down the disruption, the group would backlash against them. And if they didn't, the disruption would continue. So you couldn't win. And it was a very unstable group because the officers had no authority whatsoever. So if you have no authority, you can't respond to situations that arise, certainly not in an effective or efficient way. Getting anything done or anything agreed is very hard work because everyone has to have a voice in the trivial administrative details. People are very reluctant to suggest changes. And so the group was very static. It wasn't responding to what was going on over the many years that I was going to. Because it was so hard to get anything decided or anything done, even a very simple thing. So change was very slow moving, and it's gone now, that group, because it didn't adapt. It was unable to adapt. Authority without responsibility. Occasionally you get the other extreme. I was talking to someone a while ago about a group where it was a face-to-face group before COVID, and then it went hybrid during COVID. So it had two founders, and it went hybrid during COVID. And as the various lockdowns were lifted, the idea was to dissolve the hybrid aspect of it and just have it revert to being a face-to-face meeting. But by this point, 3/4 of the people that were going were online and not in the city where the meeting was taking place. So if it stopped being hybrid, it's bye-bye to those group members. And the two founders took it upon themselves to hold a group conscience meeting at a time that no one else could make. And at that group conscience meeting, they disbanded the hybrid, they got rid of the hybrid element. So it was just, everyone was just locked out of it. This is authority without responsibility. Because responsibility is about accountability to whom? To the group. There was no mechanism in that group for the group to exercise its authority. And what happened in the end was very, very good solution. They set up their own online meeting, which is now very big. And the little piddly face-to-face meeting is very small. So fate has intervened to rectify this beautifully. Everyone got just what they deserve. So no accountability mechanism. It tends to, because it allows people to do anything and there's no comeback. Very rash decisions can get made and groups can become very unstable in these situations. The ideal is where you've got accountability, and this is for 12-step groups. There are formations outside the scope of the fellowships. There are obviously work situations which are different. So this is simply a model for a 12-step group and the fellowship as a whole, where authority and responsibility go together, but you've got a division between the two levels of decision within a group. So the group conscience is for the group as a whole to decide on its on large matters, final decision on large matters of general policy and finance. That final decision on large matters of general policy and finance, and there aren't many of those. And I don't know if you've ever been to a group conscience, but you have one topic. The single topic can go on for 6 months. You don't want more than half a dozen large final decisions on large matters of general policy and finance. You don't want more than half a dozen of those a year because the group can't stand it. If every tiny matter goes to the group conscience, you can't get any business done. And the tension of having even one decision to make will divide a group. As soon as you have lots, nightmare. So the group conscience deals with those, and then it delegates to the officers the authority and responsibility to act on those matters and just get on with it and write the script without the script having to go back to the group for everyone poring over commas and semicolons and, well, maybe we could use this adjective because it's more inclusive, or this one because it's less politically correct. But everyone you get to prove. No one wants to draft the thing, but everyone wants to proofread it. Very interesting. And you can't get anything done. And then there's plenty of time to sit to watch the impact of those little decisions, those implementation decisions that the officers take. Let it play out. See whether it works or not. If something really doesn't work, then a groundswell will come up from the group and say, no, we need that's not going to fly. But most of the time, 19 out of 20 little things that the officers do are absolutely fine. Very occasionally, there's something which really doesn't work. So to just let things play out, and then there are 4 measures available to the group. The first one is it can provide censure. So they shouldn't have done that. It can redirect. The group conscience can also reorganize who does what, and it can remove people. So there's no risk in giving officers authority to just get on with the job and make little decisions amongst themselves as the steering committee as they go, because there's an accountability mechanism. So responsibility doesn't work without accountability. So you've got 3 things there looking at concept 3. You've got authority, which is the right to take action, make decisions and take action. Responsibility is carrying the can for the consequences of those decisions. And first of all, taking the action. You've got to take the action. To take responsibility, you have to take action. You're responsible for the results. And then you're accountable back to the people that gave you the job. And if those 3 things are recognized in right proportion, you've got a perfect balance at the end of the day between the group conscience really is in charge of the group. Because at any time they can say, we're done with this person, with this chair, this secretary, this treasurer, we need another one. We love you, but we want someone else. But you can be active, you can be flexible, decisions can get made quickly, and without dividing the group down the middle on every decision. And sometimes concept 3 does actually need to kick in. And I was in a region committee many years ago where the health liaison officer was acting outside the scope of their authority. So they were being cavalier in the discharge of their duties. They were, when talking to health professionals at quite a high level, were sounding off on all sorts of matters which had nothing to do with AA, to do with that they had particular opinions about healthcare, and there was some conspiracy theories in there as well. And the region just said, thank you very much for your service, but we no longer need you to help us out with this, and we're going to advertise the position. It doesn't happen very often, but it's available, and everyone breathed a huge sigh of relief. We'd rather have the position vacant than have a loose canon in it. And ultimately, and this is, I'll finish on this, that the last point with concept 3 is if what the officers are doing works, people will keep coming back to the meeting. If it doesn't work, they'll stop coming. And if enough people stop coming, no one there, no group, problem solved, because people can just go elsewhere. So the mechanism of accountability needn't be overt. It can be covertly expressed by how well the group is doing in terms of attendance and participation. And if you can't get people to do service, maybe look at what the existing officers, how they're handling the group, which is making it so unattractive for others to get involved. Very interesting. When you can't find service, often there's something going wrong in that concept 3 situation of authority, responsibility, and accountability. I hope that wasn't too academic, but I think these principles can be applied in all sorts of areas, but to do so, one's got to understand how they work in their original context. So I hope that's been helpful. I'm going to stop the recording now.